All right, so
Take
I
it!
was
Take
take
it,
it,
baby.
and I feel that's the song. I was like, that's the song.
Yeah.
No, but I was watching as I do Timothy Chalamet interviews, and then like someone apparently wore a shirt of his face, and then he referenced a specific shirt, and I googled it, and I guess James Ivory like got a shirt that had his face on it, and because there was a shirt he wore in Call Me by Your Name that sort of like looked like a Matisse painting or something like that, so that sort of inspired this other guy to make this shirt that has his face on it. But after clicking on things, it led me to find like on eBay like articles of clothing, like reproductions that he wore, or like vintage items, because that Timothy wore in Call Me by Your Name, like vintage '80s tees, or that kind of button down, or some sports shirts. So I was like, oh my god, this actually exists, because it's like it had me thinking once I like found something like that, like for reasonable prices. I'm just like, okay, because I'm sort of like emulating a little bit of like kind of his style stuff. So it's like, what if I could actually have pieces that I was like inspired by, or like just like to wear it for like me, and that'd be like I wouldn't have to like approximate. But then it had me thinking like, okay, hold up. That's like a power move to have the ability to do that, to dress like exactly like a thing. But is there like a line I'd be crossing to like, okay, where this exact fit is for me
From
as
a
myself,
film character.
from a film character, and just like it gave me like, first of all, I'm not gonna buy anything. I'm saving money, but in the hypothetical situation where I did, it's like, because like instead I'm approximating these silhouettes and things like that, and it looks with my versions of things, but the opportunity to get the actual things, or at least reproductions of the things, was very tempting. So it really got me thinking, like, when you see something on screen,
something.
and you
Say something.
see something, and you better say something. If you don't, we're gonna come at you. We know your DMs, or we're gonna hunt for you. So I thought, like, okay, is this a little weird? Like, because I see stuff all the time, like, and I just like, oh, that's so cool. I would love to get something like that. Like, I've talked to death Lupin's suit. So, and I feel like I have like a version of that with my All Love Sack suit. So just like not exact versions, but like closest twos or something like that. So I really haven't had the opportunity of just like getting a thing that's exactly like something I saw. So it really made me question, like, well, would I want that? Would I feel like a copycat, even though you'll never be this person and you'll never be in their track and what they do? First of all, you can't, because it's a fictional character. But even outside of that, when you consider them as people, just putting on a costume, you're never going to be that version of them, because you're yourself and they're them. So it's like it'll always be slightly different.
But there's always that thing of like, you're intentionally exuding them in a sense, right? Like, even if you're not them, you can point to, maybe they inspire you, or even like, signaling that you are a fan of whatever piece of content it is, right?
Yeah, and there is like a fine line, I think, between like, oh gosh, he wore this, okay, I need to copy exactly this and do that, and like have no sense of yourself or personal style, or also recognizing that, okay, you probably have niche interests that the rest of the world, or at least especially in your demographic, isn't going to say, oh, he's wearing a Call Me by Your Name shirt in Wisconsin. No, so I think you have to step outside yourself at a certain point and say, okay, not everyone's going to like call me out in this thing that I care about a lot. But I think it is worth considering, like, what, like, a cutoff. Like, it basically made me ask in the Discord. I never referenced this specifically, but it basically led me to the question of, if you see something that you like on screen or something like that, do you is it I know I'm holding back from me saying it too. Do you say something? Do you resist that temptation to like do that exact look, and instead just like be inspired by silhouettes, be inspired, or color palettes, or things like it? Or if you have an opportunity to dress like Steve Zissou or something like that, do you go for it? Do you do that exact thing? At what point, and if you do that, is that costumey? Do you lose a sense of personal style? Or do you continue, and the other way of it, just continue to kind of like approximate and be inspired by things without doing exact copies? And that's basically the question I posed last week. So enough of me.
Yeah, basically you're saying, if you see something on the screen, do you say something, and do you ask yourself, and is the thing you said, can I get a copy of that thing, and if you would wear it? So, something that comes to mind as you were talking about this is I think it applies to what we to our Star Wars conversation maybe like a month ago, where I don't think, at least lately, as I've gotten into menswear, I don't think I look at films or people on TV or whatever for inspiration, but I think of what, if I do, it's usually, okay, what are the costumers pulling inspiration from? Just like with Star Wars, don't look at other Star Wars films for inspiration. Look at what inspired George Lucas to make the original Star Wars, Western films, whatever. So if we're thinking about, let's say, maybe not like Call Me by Your Name, right? It's kind of like like the kind of 80s prep thing with the big Oxford shirts and the shorts.
Yeah.
And, look at literal 80s, old 80s prep stuff. Look at, 90s fits, whatever. Look at that and then get inspiration from there. So personally speaking, I've never really had too much of that. Also, I've never considered a film character to be, unless it's a period film, like we're talking about, like maybe like, things that we saw, Clark Gable, right? Like the whole bellow pocket suit, stuff like that. That's a little bit different because I think nowadays films have a different approach to costuming. Maybe, I mean, I could just be making conjecture and stuff like that, right? But when we have stuff like the Untouchables, where all the clothing was made by Armani, right? Or like Brooks Brothers helped do the Great Gatsby film instead of using historical garments. It's always, or even the 70s Gatsby, where it's done by Ralph Lauren instead of also period clothing, right? So there's always a kind of aspect of like, because I'm cognizant of that, it's like, well, I'm not going to get exactly what I want from it. I'm always going to see like some kind of stylized, for even with Gangster Squad, right? It looks kind of okay, but even then you can just tell something's a bit off about it, right? And again, for me personally, we're going to go through everyone else's opinions in a second, but it's always that idea that they're being made for the film. They're not real clothes that people are lived in. I'm very cognizant of,
and I mean that
separation, like the fourth wall.
That is an interesting point because back in the day, like pre 50s and 60s, a lot of actors were wearing their own clothes in movies.
Yeah, that's so funny.
So I don't know if Clark Gable in particular owned that suit, but I mean, I know that there are a lot of movies where Clark Gable wears his own clothes. I know that Cary Grant does that a lot.
Yep. And plus, there are pictures of Clark Gable wearing maybe not that suit, but similar cut suits with bellow pockets as well. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that he's pulling stuff from his own wardrobe.
It was part of the idea of the. Yeah, it was part of the idea of the studio system. Most of them wore their own clothes, and I think Clark Gable didn't actually wear his own. That was his suit for It Happened One Night, because it was a B picture. It was actually kind of the backstory behind that film was that was a bit of a punishment for him. He was a bit, he wasn't well behaved, so it was like a kind of punishment. They moved him to a lesser studio.
He was a bad boy.
Yeah, they gave him this upstart director named Frank Capra, and was like, "Here, make this film at this studio as your punishment." And they swept the swept the Academy. Yeah, they swept the Academy Awards.
But so that is interesting.
Yeah, it's the studio system though. Now we have.
Hey, it's coming back. It's coming back, guys. Studio system's coming back.
Yeah, it's the idea of.
There wasn't.
Go ahead.
So the way I see it in relation to this is that there wasn't as much of a distinction between on camera and off camera. It might not have been. There was a persona you had to maintain at all times. So in that environment, it makes sense that you would sort of take your wardrobe off the set and go about for the cameras, go about for Hedda Hopper and all those columnists in the same outfits, being Cary Grant off screen as well as on.
Right.
Anyway, yesterday a judge, what do you call it? Overruled the court case that ended the studio system back in the 50s. So we'll see how that we'll see what happens now. God. Vertical integration back on the table.
Upward revenue stream dynamics.
Yeah,
love it. But so I was always very cognizant of like that whole thing, the differences between how films were costumed back in the day compared to say now, right? And I mean, again, we talk about all these period films, like we talk about like Allied or something like that, which is a film of I don't think anyone really watched it, but it's it's a 40s.
It's a Brad Pitt movie, right?
With Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard or something, and
that's
and that one, it's always like when you watch like vintage film or period films, like the main characters always have clothing that is like specifically made for them, and a modern interpretation, and then like extras will have real vintage because that's usually what they pull from costume warehouses. And so for me, it's like, well, people might look at it and be like, oh, Brad Pitt looks really sharp. But to me, I'm like, okay, well, that suit sucks because like the shoulders look weird, the lapels are off, the pants aren't like that high rise or whatever. But then you'll look, in the background, like, okay, look at that guy. Like that guy looks cool. I mean, one that we talked about on the blog was Fantastic Beasts, stuff like that. But yeah, so I've never personally really had anything like that. I think that maybe in my youth there were a couple times, where maybe I wanted a trench coat because Inspector Gadget wore it, but then even then I knew that Inspector Gadget wore like a plain white shirt and a plain tie and like plain trousers. Like that's a little boring to me, I remember watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine and seeing him wear seeing Andy Samberg's character Jake Peralta wear a plaid shirt with like a tie and then like a moto jacket with it, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I actually found out that moto jacket is from Urban Outfitters and it was made of fake leather, and immediately I was like, okay, well now I don't want it anymore. But maybe there's a little bit of like inspiration of like, okay, black leather jackets are cool, but never like I want to look like that. I'm never gonna pull that exact kind of thing. I mean, I've talked to Fantastic Beasts with Grindelwald. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of SLP. You might as well look at SLP for inspiration of wearing like, vampiric rock and roll outfits. I'm not going to look straight up and wear like a fucking embroidered waistcoat with jodhpurs and stuff, I'm not going to go ahead and do that exactly.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I think, well, I don't know about you, but it's like, even if I'm not watching this movie saying I'm looking at the clothes in this movie, because I like clothes a lot and I think about them, I just notice them. Even if I'm not going into a movie saying it's like, oh, the clothes in this movie are going to be so good, like I'll see a character wearing an outfit and maybe it's just like, it doesn't have to be like a period piece or a movie where the point is that a character is super well dressed or whatever, but I could just maybe like a jacket that a character, like the fucking what was that Matthew McConaughey movie that we saw, the really bad one? Serenity. That's what ultimately made me decide to get that like World War II like USN shawl collar jacket.
Oh, that's right.
Like it's a shitty movie and it's like Matthew McConaughey's character is not particularly well dressed, but I spent 2 hours watching a character wear this particular denim jacket that I like had thought about, and I'm like, no, you know what? I think I do want this.
Well, I mean, the costumes of the fifth character, like New York.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in that sense, you're treating the film like an inspiration album more than the film. It's not that you're passing yourself off to the characters. It's that seeing on the screen gives you the additional reinforcements.
Exactly. And I mean,
in your own mind.
I don't think there's ever been a time where I've like directly lifted an outfit from like a movie character. Maybe in like middle school and high school.
The whole Neo thing.
But I mean, like early on, it's like movies and TV were where I got most of my like inspiration from. And I mean, still now it's like, I wouldn't copy an outfit directly, but like, it's stuff like that. Like I see Taxi Driver and I want like a tank jacket, but I don't want a tank jacket with the specific patches that like he has. And I'm not going to wear it with like, cowboy boots and like, I might do that, but, but it's not going to be the exact same pieces. So I feel like, and it's like, I mean, a plaid shirt and cowboy boots and a field jacket is such a basic outfit that, I don't know, people aren't going to be like, oh, this guy's like cosplaying Travis Bickle.
Yeah, well, a lot of film outfits, that's the thing. They're so common for the most part. They're not particularly unique.
Right.
You can't really accuse someone of cosplaying.
Exactly.
I'm sure we can get. Sorry, hold on. In a certain point, we can talk about tropes. Like I think it's kind of hinted at in the chat. Like you wear a leather jacket, people think indie, stuff like that. I'm sure we can get into that at a certain point. But I relate, Spencer. Like if it's like a movie that it's like not doing anything for me, I'm like checking out. I'll just start looking at their clothes, even if it's like a modern thing. It's like, oh, that's a fun jacket. Is that your jacket?
Yeah. It's funny though. Exactly. By the way, but I still don't get the inspiration from the film, but what I do, if anything, I get it from the production stills, which I don't know, maybe just is me as like a photographer or whatever. Like I prefer like a static image over like, because of this, maybe then it kind of is like, okay, we're documenting this person as opposed to a movie where everything's edited. To me, it feels very fake. I don't like to let myself to get inspired by watching again Serenity. But I mean, if I had seen like the BTS pictures of him wearing this shawl collar jacket, I would be like, oh, that's actually interesting. I don't know what that is from with me. Maybe it's because I grew up, compiling images from looking at, some of the best pictures of like the golden era are behind the scenes stuff of these, Clark Gable, Cary Grant, chilling on the set wearing their suits. I think those, give me way more inspiration.
They're just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
Hey.
But as Jeremy said, too much movement and other focal points on screen. Exactly. I mean, I might notice it, but I'm not going to, really think of it as inspiration that much. MJ, what do you think? I mean, what about you and like let's say like looking at anime or even like animated films or stuff like that? Because that's also kind of like a thing that we see a lot on the sides, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that one's kind of hard because animation or cartoons kind of, is more, I guess, not real.
You never want to dress like Timmy Turner?
What is that? Like just pink shirt, pink cap, blue jeans? Solid look,
that's what I mean. Or like SpongeBob, right? It's like brown shorts or brown pants.
By the way, SpongeBob high-rise trousers.
That's right, he does wear high-rise trousers.
I mean, you can just substitute grippy shorts for SpongeBob's pants, right?
You're done. That's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we could. I would also say when we reference Back to the Future at the beginning, I've definitely copied Marty McFly orange with denim.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then like he wears like a flannel or like a plaid shirt underneath, so it's not as as mensweary, but
I do think, that sometimes films are interesting in that like I said earlier with looking at the original inspiration, sometimes it takes a film to like put that specific like combination in your mind before you expand on it, right? Like seeing Marty McFly wear the puffer vest, it's probably like the first time I saw puffer vest, like out in the open, I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then you keep it in your mind as you look at like 70s or 80s Rugged Ivy or something, like, okay, like the common thread is there.
The Phantom Thread.
The Phantom Thread.
Common thread.
I mean, well, how about this? You write about this. You write about the style in movies. You write about the style in like Phantom Thread. You like kind of wore outfits inspired by it afterwards. So,
yeah,
like,
I think I wore like a bow tie.
Yeah.
With like a suit. I'm like, okay, so there are sometimes. I guess that one was very. I guess whoops, there goes that ring. I was playing with my rings.
Bye rings.
Your cock ring.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Hey, TOS boy.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's a good example because I can't think of very many times where I could, think of overt inspiration. That might be one of them. Also, I think that film is also one of the reasons I started thinking about like vibrant socks too. I mean, I already saw it with Drakes and everything, but like the pink or like a pink sock, or like red socks.
Is that the next evolution?
My favorite team.
I mean, hey, guys in the chat, just say F if you know what I'm talking about with pink sock. Just if you know, you know.
They're breaking their keyboards, Ethan.
God. But yeah, with the anime one, I feel like it's very common because being on TikTok or being in subtle Asian fashion, with these subgroups that like to watch anime or other animated shows, you see a lot of inspired outfits. I see for girls, Sailor Moon with like a very 90s pastel color palette, or even like high-waisted and jeans with a crop top is very prominent. I think where it starts to go bad is when you start wearing like black mannequin outfits because you want to be like Assassin's Creed.
Yes, exactly.
Or we'll talk about the tropes later on.
See, I wanted to make that point that especially for like anime and video games inspired stuff, you want to avoid,
I mean, most clothing that is
the hoodie that's printed to look like,
most like geek
there was
clothing
wait, sorry, hold on. You say hoodie?
Tropes later on.
Yeah, you said the hoodie. There was a literal like the kind of elven capes that they have in Lord of the Rings. Wait, no one even here watches Lord of the Rings. So just realized.
That's right. We haven't seen it.
Yeah, take that nerd trying to get us to watch that movie, idiot.
I've seen it, Matt.
Okay.
Wait, you've seen it? Okay. Well, yes. Whoever said that, they make like hell Kiyoshi. So they basically took those cloaks, those green ones, and made like a hoodie out of it. The same long hood. It's like, what are you doing? Who would wear it?
What are you doing?
It's so awkward. All right. Well, that's an isolated clip right there. Matt's Hobbit talk.
There you go. But before we get to like the tropes and the overt, like literally lifting the costume and wearing it, you know,
it's so heavy.
Kiyoshi, I know you had some thoughts about this. You kind of, you know, you had some good stuff with RL. So maybe you can take a moment and talk about that now.
RL? Sorry, what do you mean?
Ralph Lauren. You talked about Ralph Lauren, the character.
Yeah. So
never heard of him.
Yeah. Little guy.
Seems to ring a bell. It seems familiar.
Hangs out with bears and horses.
Yeah.
So I think one of the interesting things about Ralph Lauren in his design process, when you kind of read or hear about it, is that he approaches designing collections for different seasons as if he was dressing the cast of a film. Mm-hmm. So you know, the film might be taking place in like a safari in Africa, or maybe it's taking place in downtown Manhattan, or maybe it's taking place out west. So from what I'm told is that they will do what's called rigging for a room. So they will have a room and they will fill it with just tons and tons of old antique stuff or things. Like, think of it like instead of a mood board, it's like just decorating an entire room or studio with objects and photos and clothing and vintage pieces and furniture that would be maybe part of that universe. So to me, what's interesting about this is it takes it like for a character in a movie or a TV show, I think it kind of helps reimagine the idea of, oh wow, that character dresses cool, I want to dress like them, instead of copying it per se. Think a little bit about the idea that you've got this character lives in a world, has a certain lifestyle. What would be in this character's wardrobe that would reflect that lifestyle?
Right.
And if you want to take it to your own self, then think about, you know, cast yourself in your own movie about yourself. What do you do? What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? Who are the people that you're around? What is your job? What do you do for leisure? And what are the clothes that would be that, you know, a costume designer say would outfit you in for that? And I think that's an interesting way to approach your wardrobe, because it helps give it this kind of more holistic idea rather than a single outfit or a unique item. That kind of builds a universe around the person rather than just singular pieces that you focus on. You start thinking about, you know, all the things that go in the closet rather than just this one thing that you're putting together.
I like it. I like when you turn the mirror on yourself and really look within, just like, what do you like? It's like, I always have to do like character studies for like things I'm working on. And I always wonder, like, what if I had to answer these for myself? Like, do I even know me? This is pre-therapy. So I was just like, oh God. So it's kind of like that almost with clothing. Like, it's like, what's actually me? What's actually beneath all the inspiration, you know?
Yeah. How would someone else dress you? I think is like, you kind of take that third person perspective. You know, it's kind of like one of those like dating questionnaires. It's like, how would your best friends describe you? It's like, shit, I don't know. I don't know. I don't ask them that too much, you know.
What do you want?
I don't want to know.
If I could go a bit of a Ralph Lauren tangent there, wasn't he, if not the first, one of the first menswear designers to lobby for credits in films as a designer, like with the Great Gatsby film? Before that, Ralph Lauren. So if that is indeed the case, and he did lobby, and he was the first to have his name attached to the wardrobe of that film, he's got to be one of the first, if not the first, meaning that he banks on the idea that films are a marketing tool, that people would go in to see the Great Gatsby film and immediately want to go to the Ralph Lauren store, and it seems like it's worked out for him, actually, because
there's a
lot of people have jumped on that bandwagon afterwards.
There's a really good biography called Genuine Authentic It's an unauthorized biography about Ralph Lauren, and it does go into that in detail about one, also his love of movies and how that influences him, but also that specifically kind of you can read up on. It's actually a really good book, genuine, authentic. You can get it on Amazon Prime for like $5. I would check it out.
I check that out. It sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point overall with RL and everything, because yeah, I mean it's a good point.
It speaks to the strength of films as a source of inspiration for.
Because I was gonna say, again, like myself with the old 30s BTS pictures, and not of the K-pop group. But you look at all the Bryceland's guys, and and Ethan Newton said he was always wanted like a silver belly after seeing fucking Jimmy Stewart wear one in some, I don't really watch westerns that much, but there's a lot of that stuff in there, getting western.
Who shot Liberty Valance? That's my guess.
Who shot him?
Who did shoot him?
Who did?
Jimmy Stewart.
A lot of people do that. I mean, we also have to think of films like The Talented Mr. Ripley, which kind of like popularized or brought back-ish.
And I mean, it's like fucking
like the Italian Riviera look. And Scott Fraser Simpson.
Yeah, exactly. They just made a replica.
Made a name. He made a name for himself. Kind of, at first making shirts that are kind of inspired of that world, right? I mean, it's still, 60s Italian knit shirts have been a thing for a while. But, in terms of like the contemporary men's world, he was like one of the first people to kind of do that. And then eventually he actually was able to reproduce a very close version. I mean, it looks just like it was there, right? I think that's super cool. And I think that the way Scott Fraser does it, because he has a kind of a more 40s, 50s background instead of like a straight 60s thing, it looks more in line with his world, if you want to call it like the Ralph Lauren, finding out what your world is, or
part of his world,
finding a world of your own in a sense, right? Because he's not wearing it,
pure
just
imagination.
Like, what's his name? Jude Law's character, right? And was it some Dickie Green or whatever? He doesn't look like that. With wearing like wide leg, super wide leg trousers to the high waist, it doesn't look like he's doing the film exactly, but you can tell like there's again a common thread, a through line, whatever you want to call it, of inspiration there. That is cool. I think is more, it's still in the same line of our conversation, but again, not like you're cosplaying and directly lifting it, because as Ivan says, there's a difference between dressing like someone because you like their clothes and dressing like someone because you want to be them. And I think that intention, that mentality is very clear by how you execute your inspiration, right? Because I think a lot of us here take a lot of inspiration from Ivy, Italian style, whatever, but there's a difference between how we're doing it and someone literally just wearing it like cosplay. Because I think cosplay is wearing the costume because you literally want to be indistinguishable from the source material, as opposed to inspiration where you're melding the two together.
And I feel like people who do the cosplay thing, they don't get it as much as like we might do. Like they'll think, well, I am them now, and surely people will respect me and look up to me because I'm wearing this thing. But of course they don't, and then they're like, what? It didn't work?
Yeah.
To build on that, it kind of speaks to where your priorities lie, I suppose. The guy who wears the exact same outfit down to the right sort of patches and the right sort of wear on the elbow and that sort of thing. His priorities are with the character. He wants to be that person. Yeah. Whereas if your priorities are fashion, you don't really care. You don't really care as much. The idea, the concept of it is what's important, not being exactly who that person is on the screen.
And I mean, maybe just an easier way of putting it is just kind of like mood. Like I don't know about you guys, but it's like well, no, not even that. But it's like
it's stronger the mood though, because it's more of a conviction.
Okay, well maybe I'm talking about something else. But what I'm talking about is it doesn't even have to be like. It doesn't even have to be like you're wearing something that is inspired. Well, it's inspired from the movie, but it's not like I'm wearing this jacket because the character wears a jacket in the movie. If you're wearing a movie that has like a very kind of like, gritty look, and then you wear like scumcore for the next kind of couple days, or if you watch a period piece and then you wear outfits inspired by that period, I don't know. I think that's I do.
It's
I do
not
that
as
all
literal.
the time. No, I do, but that's that's like
Well,
that's how
more
I kind of like
abstract.
get into like my moods week to week or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, so there's an element of Jeremy says there's an element of creative intolerance for ambiguity here. Well, I think that's what it is. I mean, it's because it's kind of like, you know, we'll talk about the tropes in a second because I want to read through the Discord of people who are unfortunately are not in the chat or in the Discord right now. But you know, it's like what Aldous was saying. You know, guys who want to be super specific with things. You know, it's like they really want. If we take the Indiana Jones example, you know, like they think that when they wear it, you know, they are the character and it looks good, but it's just not cool. You know, and I think that there is definitely a way of wearing a leather jacket and a fedora that is cool.
I don't want to shit on people who aspire to that sort of ideal to embody the character through dressing like it. I don't want to dump on those guys, but I do.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do. Where I will agree though is if you are going down to the details, clearly your priorities must be with trying to emulate the character. The more precise you are, the less likely you're interested by the clothes. Actually, just more the.
I mean, Indiana Jones is a bit. You know, it's probably an easy one, but like, you know, I'm reminded of all those guys. You know, with the men going their own way, whatever. Like all those guys who like look at like Mad Men, and then they think that what they're doing is so like they're clearly inspired and want to dress like, you know, like Don Draper, but the execution is so wrong. You know, and I think that's what it is. It's like they don't understand like what makes the clothing look good and what makes it cool. And I think that is a very specific thing about getting inspired by film. And I think that's maybe why when we get to, you know, people who are into clothing, the way people incorporate inspiration is a lot more cohesive, a lot more natural than a guy looking at, you know, again, Indiana Jones or Don Draper and then putting those on.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not entirely getting it.
I always think about the 4chan copy pasta of the guy who got a girlfriend by pretending to be Drive from the movie Drive, and she had never.
And that's a big one.
And she had never seen it.
Oh god.
So she like didn't know that he was just doing Drive when he was wearing a white satin jacket.
But can you imagine the moment she found out or watched?
No, it's like the whole thing is like he was like, I'm never gonna let her know. Like she can never know that I'm Drive.
Like he could stop her.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go through now.
You're gonna what?
Yes. I'm gonna go through the Discord and you know, tell some things that other people are saying. So John Greenacre, good friend of ours, great amateur tailor, dude. One of the best work I've ever seen. He says, I definitely do that, but I don't feel like it's not his own personal style. Whenever he does this, make sure the silhouettes are in line with what he likes in the moment, so that makes it personal to him. And so as an example, he started wearing bandanas after seeing Steve do it in Magnificent Seven. And at first it felt like copying him, but the more he did it, it's something that, you know, is natural to him. It's something he does all the time and wears it across different outfits. So he says it's cool to sometimes think that you're feeling that you're cosplaying to an extent until, you know, you feel like you're imbued with positive qualities of the character you're approximating. So it's kind of a good way to kind of do that. You know, I think that's, you know, I can't knock that if you like, you know, wearing a fedora because it reminds me of Indiana Jones, and it gives you confidence. I mean, hey, who are we to tell you that, you know, that what you're doing is wrong? Might look bad, but you know you're not wrong in yourself in doing it.
Well, what it looks bad depends on skill. It's not really dependent on where you're coming from.
Yeah,
really.
And again,
if you knew what you were doing and you wanted to emulate it exactly, you could probably put together a decent outfit. Like going back to Mad Men, if the Mad Men cosplay guys knew about suits actually and like had access to the armory, they could probably make a really nice outfit, and we wouldn't peg that as being a costume.
I mean, we all. I feel like I could approximate. You know, if I was like Spencer and I watched Mad, I just put on Mad Men in the background of whatever I was doing. You know, and I feel like that would probably affect me to wear like, okay, I feel like wearing a sack jacket today with like an OCBD, and then or like a plain shirt, and then like a one of my slimmer striped ties or something, and kind of have like a TV full of pockets. Where I feel like, I mean, it might not be overt, but I feel like the vibes are there. You know, and I think because I know a little bit.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about mood. Vibes is another good way.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be also said that, you know, the majority of people do not look like Hollywood A-list actors. So it's like if we take inspiration from something, we have to know that we're born with the fleshy sacks we have, and so we wear whatever they're wearing, but it's not going to look the same, So there's a level of that taken as well.
Really quick, Hazlitt says what all the Mad Men types miss is that the best fits are in the second half of the show. Absolutely right.
Underappreciated.
Are you Stan Rizzo? Are you kidding me? I kind of like. I don't like vests by themselves, but man, I kind of want like a buckskin vest or something. Like that. I mean, that's that's getting inspiration from TV. I see Stan Rizzo wearing like fucking buckskin vests and like cowboy shirts all the time, and I'm like, no, that looks sick.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the other things too people forget is like, you can get the items, but a lot of cases like people are like, I got the, again, bring it back to the Indiana Jones fedora. Well, it's like you should kind of also like take care of yourself and do some personal grooming. And, like the Don Draper stuff, where it's like, you're dressed in a skinny tie and thin lapel suit, but you haven't shaved and you got a neck beard, and like you should definitely get your hair cut. That's kind of part of that whole Ivy League look is the grooming aspect. I think a lot of people forget that too. It's not just the clothes; it is everything else that goes into that person's style. Is like how they carry themselves, how their home is. Like that personality that goes with the clothing. It's not just the clothing.
Do you make an obscene amount of money and work on Madison Avenue? If not,
would you like to?
would you like to? Yes, exactly.
We're offering you.
To that point though, Kiyoshi. You're right in that it goes beyond the clothes. Actually, and a lot of people neglect that, but also people miss when it comes to grooming as well. I think there's also a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to grooming yourself like the Mad Men. Haircuts that I see that are not really what they had, kind of reminiscent, but not the same. Inferior, in my opinion. I like to go off on a bit of a diversion for Double Breast of the Westkid's sake, though. He always brings up the Jeeves and Wooster television show as being a source of inspiration. Have you guys watched that? I'm curious.
I've seen. I don't know. My friend Jay really likes that show.
Clips.
I've seen either clips
of
or
course
like maybe
Jay
a couple
likes
episodes.
it. I mean,
I watched it.
Before you start on that thing, it's like the one good thing about period films and getting inspired by it, even if it can lead to some odd fashion choices for yourself, if you really like watching modern period films, because again, like watching Gangster Squad, I don't think will lead you in a good direction of how to dress, right? But it works in the sense of providing inspiration that you wouldn't normally get. Because one thing for me is that I feel like I've seen every Lawrence Fellows illustration or as many apparel arts scans as I can, as provided, because I've done a lot of Googling. I've looked at Fedora Lounge or different websites that do scans and everything. So of course it's finite, but of course films are being made all the time. Period films are still, a thing.
They're not making movies right now, right? Actually.
Well, not right now.
Not right
now.
Well,
like let's say for like Jeeves Wooster, which takes place in like the 30s, right? It's a cool place to kind of, get
ambiguously
more ideas. Yeah, ambiguously, right? But it's a cool idea of getting like, more ideas of vintage clothing, because I'm sure that I'm sure they incorporate some vintage pieces or vintage ties or reference a lot of stuff that and interpret it in their specific way that you might not have seen otherwise, right? Like watching, I don't know, like looking at like Tintin, right? Tintin's kind of a fun place to look at inspiration, a place that I really want to write about, but there's like so many books. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it all in one or pick one particular story or something. But there's a lot of stuff like in the background
good for. Jeeves and Wooster, even the main characters, Hugh Laurie's Grace and that for what they are, they're very specific 1930s, following the rules sort of look, no brown and tan, that sort of thing, which maybe doesn't really. It's not something I really agree with, but there's stuff in there. They went deep, like the have you ever seen the leather straps that some guys wore? Like they loops it through their buttonhole under the lapel, and they wore a pocket watch on the end of that in their breast pocket, like that sort of stuff. Like you might not have seen that otherwise, and it's a source of inspiration for that. But it's not. I don't know. I don't think it's a great source of inspiration for stuff that's not period personally. Although I do admire it, and I have watched all the episodes at some points. You guys, to finish up the Mad Men point, though, You ever see Dick Van Dyke when he went on Mark Maron's podcast?
No, I didn't. He went on.
No,
he went on WTF with Mark Maron. Did
he
say who his guys were?
Maron. What?
Dick Van Dyke, who are your guys? That's my impression of Mark Maron.
No, it was a good episode all round. But about Mad Men, at one point, Mark Maron asks Dick Van Dyke about what he thinks about Mad Men, and they start talking about the suits. No, actually, they didn't start talking about the suits. They asked Mark Maron asked Dick Van Dyke what he thought about Mad Men, and the first
MJ,
thing
really
he said
quick,
was,
I'm joining your server.
I wish they had me on there so I could tell them what a Brook.
But I just finished the tutorial. Let me know when you're.
Oh wow!
You're what?
Yeah.
That's cool.
When Dick Van Dyke was with Mark Maron and they talked about Mad Men, the first thing he said when Mark Maron asked him about Mad Men was, he said he wished he'd been on there so he could tell the costumers how to do a Brooks Brothers suit properly.
That's so funny.
Sack suit. Because that's not what they would do.
Yeah, because I mean, they don't. Yeah, when you look at Mad Men, they don't technically wear sack suits exactly. Right?
None of them do. I don't think there's a single person who has like a number one sack.
I don't think so. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of characters. I don't know. There are a lot of characters wearing 3-button suits, but they're not really sack suits. They're more like business suits. Like they do. I think the costumers do a really good job in that show. There's a lot of details they get right. On the suits that I thought were vintage, but I found out were made for the show, like the shape of the lapels. The early 60s had a very specific like kind of lapel shape where it was kind of rounded on the bottom part and then pointy on the top.
Cloverleaf lapels.
Yeah, cloverleaf lapels. They get those really well.
Yeah, when you argue about the appropriateness of the Mad Men wardrobe, it gets kind of.
I mean, this is not the discussion we're having. We're not talking about how accurate the costumes are, but. I thought I'd just point that
because if you look at it as a 60s costume, it's good stuff. Like as you were saying, cloverleaf lapels. Clearly, Janie Bryant studied the 60s. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's esoteric in that. Knowing Madison Avenue in the 1960s, they would have all been Ivy boys, not Continental boys, and that's it's a bit nitpicky. I think.
Yeah,
but
exactly.